Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to assemble the Biosphere. So you got a kit that looks something like this, a jar, and it's going to have all these little baggies. So just open that up and grab all these little baggies out. These are some extra baggies to go out, I assume, and collect stuff. It might be extra baggies for the germination, so just keep it aside. You're going to get gravel, you're going to get sand, you're going to get soil. Feel free, if you have something else at home, there's no rules. You can add other stuff. But I'm going to work with what I have here. I have a couple of extra things that I'm going to use as well. I think this is soil. Actually, this says it's soil, but it's like kind of, I think they gave you a soil that's a little heavier. But
yeah, it's like a round, like pellety soil.
Yeah, it's gravelly.
Yeah.
I have regular potting soil, which you could use as well.
Okay.
Just to sort of avoid that, because what happens is that stuff tends to float and that makes a mess. So what you want to do is you want to usually start with the soil. And so you're going to pour that. I usually pour that at the bottom. I kind of like to try not to get too much on the side. I guess my hands are too big for that. If you have some,
are you doing all of it?
I'm going to use all of it. Now, if you don't use any one of these different things, all power to you. Use what you feel comfortable using. This is heavier. I think what I might do, and you don't have to listen to me, we'll see how it works. This might be the straw that broke the camel's back, but I might add a little bit of potting soil just to make mine different. So I'm going to take a little bit of potting soil and probably, because I can't get my hand in, you guys probably can. And then usually what I think is a good idea is to wet it a little bit.
You can get some water.
And then kind of get in there and beat it down. The reason is that if everything's kind of wet, it kind of prevents it from floating at the beginning. So, and watch mine float. We're going to see how this works, but I'm going to wet it, get it down. And then once I've got that down, I've got some soil in there. I have a few plants that I took out of aquarium here in the lab, so you don't have to do this, but I would really highly suggest that you try to find some sort of plant. The reason is that you need photosynthesizers, right? And so you're not going to get photosynthesizers if you don't use some kind of plant. So I found a couple of plants in the aquarium. And so usually it's nice to sort of anchor some of them down. It might not work. A lot of these were floating, so it's probably fine to just let them float. But if you have something that has anything that looks like roots and is a real plant as opposed to some sort of algae, so yeah, this one has, I thought I saw one with some roots. See, this one kind of looks like it might have some sort of root structure at the bottom, see? And so I might take that and kind of stick it in there. It might be better actually to do that once I've got some gravel on there. But anyway, so then you take the sand and you're going to put that on top. You're really going to try to cover it really good. So you can pour that in and just cover up that soil and use as much or as little as you want. Okay, don't feel like you have to use everything that's there because you all have the same thing. So it would be kind of nice to add some variety if you have the ability to. Anything that you have at home. A lot of people have aquariums, so it's really great if you have an aquarium. Maybe if you have some aquarium gravel, you can add that in. This stuff should be fine to add straight in, but if you use anything like aquarium gravel, and I'm sure aquarium people would tell you this, you probably should rinse it off first because it might have something on it that might not be good for your plants. Okay, so then we got our soil, and so then we're going to add our gravel and pour that on top too. And like I said, you could probably do sand, but I might not add all that gravel. It's quite a lot of gravel, but it's also good to have a good substrate at the bottom for lots of things to attach onto and things like that. So you just smooth it out, add your gravel. If you have any rocks, I'll go get a rock. But if you have any rocks or any kind of other thing that's going to create more surface area for algae and things to attach to, for snails, a rock from the lake, or even some ocean rocks would be fine, but just make sure to rinse everything off in case there's anything on there that might hurt your organisms. So you could add that in. You could, please don't add in aquarium type of things like little pirate chests that open or close, but you know, anything that's like a natural substance. The other thing, and we'll do that in just a second, you can add is other types of, you know, decaying matter or things like that. So I'm gonna, like, for example, if you have anything that really has roots, this is a good time to sort of get your hand in there and then dig that plant in there and kind of like bury it a little bit so that it gets down to the soil. So if you do find something that's like that, make sure to add that now before there's any water in there. I mean, you can kind of adjust it once you fill it, but it's best to add it right away. You can also do stuff like add hay, for example, because a lot of things like to hide that you might get if you get pond water from, I don't know, from a river or from a stream. There's lots of things that like to hang out in some, you know, like some sort of structure. So you could do hay. So I really encourage you when you go out to get your water to also grab other stuff that's there, you know, anything that's green, grab it. You know, I mean, obviously don't tear apart a lake or something just to get your sphere looking good. The next part is really important. It's how you add the water. And the reason is that it's really easy to just sort of muck it up and make it a big mess. So tap water, especially tap water from Linwood, apparently is really great tap water. That's what I've heard from aquarium people. So you want to decant it like a fine wine. So that means you sort of, it's going to make the gravel go down a little bit, but you kind of don't want to just pour it straight in. At least initially, you want to add the water slowly because otherwise all the stuff will come straight up into your water and make a big mess. So you see how this is a fine wine. Just imagine you're working as a sommelier and you're pouring some nice wine for somebody. I don't know if I've had a lot of students that worked at different places. So this one, I grabbed some duckweed off the top of the aquarium, but you can get duckweed almost anywhere you look. Yeah. This will all float to the top. You can see a ton of it's brown. My duckweed did this at my house too. I think it's just because we had a lot of sun this summer, so things died. And then I'm gonna just try to pour that also in. You know, be a mess at the beginning, but they'll float up to the top eventually. And I'm not sure why I don't have the talent of using the actual spout, you know, no actual practical knowledge in this person here. No, so you pour it down, once again, making sure not to pour it gently. You're gonna have some duckweed at the bottom. You can swirl it and try to get it out. But it's just to get some photosynthesizers in there. Now imagine that this is water that I picked from Lake Washington or something. So they will all float up to the top, so don't worry. At least there's no dirt. You can get your hand in there and just make sure your hand isn't soapy, and you can spend some time spreading it around. If your plant came up while you were tilting it, you can push it back down. Like I said, rocks and stuff are really great. You can always add them later too. And this is another one. You can see I have a ton of like weird, I don't know what these plants are, but they're plants that they're aquatic plants. So don't just like add grass or something, you know, something that's not aquatic, because it's just going to become basically rotting matter in your biosphere. And that's when the biosphere is the danger of it getting really awful and stinky. And people have talked about like almost being knocked out by basically just opening up their biosphere after they've been rotting in it for a while. Because remember, when things decompose, they release gases, and we can talk about that later. But if there's nothing to really break it down very well, it can be quite nasty. And then, so you can just take those plants, you can just stick them on top, they'll sink. And then you don't have to be as careful once it's pretty full. You can just gently pour it, and then you add your water. And like I said, I got some water last quarter from Lake Washington, and it must have just been full of really cool stuff. So I really highly encourage you if you have an aquarium, it's a great place to start, but you're going to get the cool heterotrophs, you know, the things that eat other things. You're going to get those primarily from Lake Washington or a lake nearby or a pond. You want to try to get snails and, you know, Daphnia and all sorts of other kinds of things. And then essentially you're done. You're welcome to augment your biosphere as you go. So let's say I start it now, like Molly, the student who's watching me right now. let's say she starts it now, but she's planning on going to Lake Washington later in the week. She can go and grab a jar and then add some more water. So maybe she wouldn't fill it quite as much. She'd fill it maybe to here with tap water and then go get some things. Or let's say your biosphere looks like it's not doing so great and maybe you want to augment it. I'm totally okay with you, like 2 weeks into it, adding something later and seeing how it does. Just make sure that when we do the biosphere discussion updates, you mention that, like, oh, my biosphere was looking like there was just too many green things and, you know, it got algae full. So I went and got a cup of, you know, I don't know, Lake Washington water. Okay. And then you just put the lid on. You don't want to do it super tight. You just want to do it sort of hand tight. Actually, don't even do it. Turn it so it's tight and then loosen it about 1 turn. And then you just leave it like that. And the most important thing is this is for you to keep. So you don't have to throw it away. Don't let your parents throw it away, your roommate, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, whatever. This has happened many, many times. You are going to watch this thing throughout the quarter. So please do not get rid of it. You get to keep it. Maybe it's going to be your happy thing to look at when the skies are not very sunny and blue like they are today. So just make sure to find a spot for it. It's really, really important not to put it in direct sun because it'll just fry everything in there and it will make the temperatures fluctuate. So northern exposure is usually pretty good. Southern exposure, not so great. And then it just depends on the other two. But you do want light because you have photosynthesizers in there. So that's important. All right, that's how you make your biosphere. Thanks for listening.